Lucky Lefty podcast. What's good? Happy Wednesday to everyone. The Onora boys are in the building. Left will be along shortly. We are brought to you by Onora Whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. It is that premium American whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. And if you're going to drink, by all means, make sure that you do so responsibly. Lots to get into today. Notre Dame releases its football schedule for 2023. We finally have dates with opponents, 2 bye weeks that should bode well for the overall health of the team, which is going to be vitally important as they march towards a national championship and a hopeful college football playoff berth. We'll talk about that. LL question of the day. Is Sam Hartman a top 5 quarterback in college football next season? Is Sam Hartman a top 5 quarterback in college football next season? LL question of the day. We'll talk about that. Heisman odds came out. We're going to talk about that as well. Sam Hartman, quarterback at Notre Dame, pretty darn good quarterback. It's not shocking that he's high on the list. So we'll get into that as well. Some recruiting news. Recruiting war has begun for one Justin Scott. We'll talk about that. Announcement still intact for January 31st. We'll talk about that as well. And then we'll talk about the Notre Dame staff continuing to be aggressive. As we said, they have a concise list for the 24 class. They know exactly who they want, and they're jumping on these kids early and building relationships. They're already on to 25. They just handed out a couple of more 25 offers on yesterday, and I will look for more offers for the class of 25 coming out very soon. And we will also talk about how Notre Dame has put college football on notice in recruiting. Notre Dame has put college football on notice in recruiting. Let's start with the release of the official schedule for Notre Dame in 2023. Before we do that, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, CFB Nation, in conjunction with Irish Breakdown, all of our great content, State of Recruiting, what I got John Garcia Jr. as well. It's the Lucky Lefty podcast. You already know we spin it different. Navy, August 26th, over in Ireland. Shamrock Series. Should be great, should be a great experience. September the 2nd, Tennessee State. That's right. The Tigers come to town to Notre Dame Stadium on September the 2nd to face off against the Fighting Irish with their head coach, Eddie George. Then on September the 9th, they go on the road, which could be a sneaky game early in the season. Could be. September 9th, they're at NC State. Last time they were at NC State was that crazy rain game, if I'm not mistaken. Like right after the Clemson game. I know NC State has been here, but I'm not sure if Notre Dame has been at NC State since that game. September the 16th, Central Michigan comes a call in the Notre Dame Stadium. September the 23rd, Ohio State walks into the building. It's going to be a great matchup. They'll have a brand new quarterback. Notre Dame will have a brand new quarterback, more than likely in Sam Hartman. But for the first time, I think Notre Dame in that matchup would have the edge at quarterback. And if you're going to get Ohio State, you better do it this year. Get them this year. You have to. You have them at home, week 5. At that point in time, they probably will be a much better team than they will be early in the season. Cal McCord, if he indeed is the quarterback, will probably, will have some games under his belt, some reps under his belt. So he'll probably be playing a little bit better. Should be interesting. September 30th. Hear me out. This is a game that scares me just a tad little bit. Right? Mike Elko has done a tremendous job with the Duke program. Riley Leonard is a fantastic young quarterback. Offensively, they could give Notre Dame some problems. I just don't know. And Elko has made that team tougher, made them a much better defensive team. With all of the weapons that Sam Hartman has at his disposal, and with Sam Hartman's familiarity with Duke, I just don't know if they can really score with Notre Dame because Notre Dame's going to be able to get stops defensively, right? I do think Duke is going to be able to put up points. You have to question where Notre Dame will be emotionally a week after facing Ohio State at home. Go on the road, tough environment, tough quarterback, really good coach. It's going to be a task. It's going to be a task. And I think that game against Duke is going to tell you a lot about the toughness of Notre Dame because I believe that game will be an opportunity, just like we saw with Georgia. It's not so much what you can do because great teams can win games when they play great. They play their A game, right? That's easy. But the memorable teams and the teams that win championships, when you go back and look at their championship seasons, they're able to win 2 to 3 games when they play C to B minus level football as a team. When you're not playing well, can you still find a way to win games? September 30th, in my opinion, will be an opportunity for Notre Dame to show, hey, we just put up a great game against Ohio State. Not our best game this week, but we still found a way to win. That might be an indicator whether or not Notre Dame is truly a title contender. October the 7th at Louisville. Jeff Brom, back home. Talented team. I think they're going to be a talented team offensively. I just don't think in his first year he's going to have depth in the roster to really deal with Notre Dame. Coming back home, October the 14th, Southern Cal. Even more than Ohio State, I feel like we owe Southern Cal. I really do. I feel like, okay, we owe you. We owe you, right? They were out there. They got the win, important win going into the Pac 12 championship. We were underhanded. I mean, we were shorthanded, right? Missing our top 2 defensive backs, going up against Caleb Williams and that wide receiver core. That's a tough task. That's a truly tough task to ask of any football team. And even with Drew Pine at quarterback, I felt like Notre Dame battled. They just made 2 key mistakes that allowed USC to play from out in front, which is what they want to do. They're front runners. If you allow them to get out in front, that's where they want to be. Then they can keep you off balance and then run the ball in the second half to run out the clock. And that's what they did with Austin Jones really doing the most damage on the ground in the second half of that game. So you saw what Utah was able to do, right? Which really was the blueprint for Notre Dame. They're going to punch early. That's what they do. Punch them right back in the mouth, make it a game, and wear them down. And Utah just physically wore them down because of the lack of depth. This year, USC is going to have more depth. Their young wide receivers are really good. They lose Jordan Addison, Taj Washington, and the freshman wide receivers that showed up in the bowl game against Tulane. But once again, you saw Tulane wear them down. Shout out to Tulane for being relentless. Even when it looked bleak there in the fourth quarter, they kept swinging, kept coming back, and eventually the body blows were fatal to USC in that matchup. And so it's going to be the same thing. Like you talk about the offense, Sam Hartman, and the potential that we have to put up points is going to be the body blows. It's going to be the body blows because they will have more depth this year. But keeping Alex Grinch, I don't know. Alex Grinch just adding talent, I don't think is really going to make that defense better. Their defensive backfield and their linebackers really still don't tackle well, and they're going to continue to not tackle well, and that really has followed Alex Grinch. If you go back the previous 4 years, even when he was at Oklahoma, defenses didn't tackle well. And I know Notre Dame fans, we have had our years we can go back to where we can point to the Notre Dame defense and say, yeah, we didn't exactly tackle well at all. So I think the trend is going to continue. And I think eventually Notre Dame will wear USC down and come away with that victory. Bye week on the 21st, October the 28th, Pittsburgh comes to town. Notre Dame should be able to handle Pittsburgh, a school that I think is in turmoil. Keaton Slovis, they were hoping he would be the answer at quarterback after Kenny Pickett goes to the NFL. And with Kenny Pickett developing the way he did for Pittsburgh, you can see the leader he was. He's a great face of that program and leader for that program. And losing him, I think, was a lot bigger than most people surmised at the time. But right now, Pittsburgh, I think they're trying to build back up. Kenny Minchie was their quarterback in their class in 23. He decommits and eventually commits to Notre Dame. So that hurts their incoming class. And at the time, he was the only 4-star in the class. So it could be some tough times for Pittsburgh next year. But they always find a way to be tough on the offensive line and the defensive line. Like they struggled a lot on the offensive line this year, but at the defensive line, the defense were pretty good. And that's understandable with Pat Narduzzi. That's understandable that they would be that way. November the 4th. Man, this is where I don't care. I want disrespect to be stacked on November 4th. When we go to Clemson, I need us to beat them down twice, 2 years in a row. Leave no doubt moving forward that it's not even close between us as programs. You're not even close to us. You're not even close. I don't care if you got a new offensive coordinator. Matter of fact, we're going to go ahead and in 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to beat Big Brother and we're going to smack the little brother. We're going to beat Big Brother gets the smack at home, and we go on the road and we smack little brother. 2 rallies for 1 next year on this schedule. Should be fun. Should be fun. Bye week after the Clemson game. And then we end the season, Wake Forest, which should be really, really interesting with them coming to town, with their quarterback now starting for Notre Dame, Dave Clawson. Let's see what he can do with that offense, that mesh offense, without Sam Hartman. And then November 25th, look, I can guarantee you one thing: it's not going to be 16-14 out there in Palo Alto. It will not be 16-14 next year. I bet the house on that. Bet the house on that. So it's going to be very interesting. Going through that schedule, what's your trap game? What's the game you're worried about the most? As we wait for Left to jump on, what's the game you worry about the most? What's the game you worry about the most? I'm telling you, man, that Duke game right after Ohio State immediately jumps off the page to me. I just don't. I don't think it's going to be easy. No, I'm not saying you can beat them the same way, but I don't think the Clemson defense is going to be better than the Notre Dame defense. I don't expect the Clemson offense to be better than the Notre Dame offense. And I expect Brian Mason to have the better special teams unit. So with all of the edges going towards Notre Dame, even with it being on the road, I definitely believe Notre Dame can walk in there next year and come out with a double-digit victory. Won't be easy. No, I'm not saying that at all. But I definitely believe that Notre Dame. I can see Notre Dame going 11-1. Right. I can see Notre Dame winning two of the three big games. Now you got Ohio State, Southern Cal, and Clemson. I can very easily see Notre Dame going 2-1 in those games. But with that schedule, 11-1, the committee will be crazy not to put Notre Dame in. Crazy not to put Notre Dame in the CFP. Lucky Lefty podcast. Left, he's on diaper duty, man. Trying to get things handled, feeding the kids, getting them put down. He'll be here shortly. And I'm trying to wait for him before we get into the Sam Hartman conversation of the top five, which should be very interesting because I'm interested in seeing what he has to say. Jay Carr, thank you for tapping in. Are we going to sweat out a win early in the year against poor teams like we have in recent years? That's got to end now. Um, to be honest, they were handling Navy. They were well on their way to handling Navy. I just don't. I think that was one of the games where the quarterback really didn't handle the pressure when they came all out in the second half because they had nothing else to go to. I don't think they really. I don't know if they can do that to Sam Hartman, but if that's the only way they can stop Notre Dame, then they're going to try it. So we'll see. I doubt it though. I think they win big. Tennessee State won't be a game. Notre Dame won't struggle against Tennessee State. North Carolina State, man, on the road. NC State's just one of those teams each and every year, even though they had a really bad loss to Boston College at the end of the year at home. NC State's just one of those teams, even without Devin Leary, they just find a way to be competitive. And, it's on the road. Maybe they can make it tough for a little bit. And maybe Jay Carr, that's what you're talking about. A team makes it tough for a little bit. NC State maybe makes it tough for a little bit. But ultimately, Notre Dame comes away with that victory. Central Michigan? Nah. I'm pretty positive they handle Central Michigan. I'm pretty positive that they handle Central Michigan. And then, we get into this is, yeah, really the season starts September 23rd. The season starts September 23rd, in my opinion. Absolutely. Super chat. Truman Theodore Dumel, what can adding Justin Scott and John Baptiste really mean for Notre Dame football as far as depth? P.S. That hat is a volcano. Where can I get it? Appreciate it. I have more information on the hat and apparel coming soon. Got some big things coming up that we're planning for Blue and Gold on April 22nd as well. So we'll both be in South Bend. So we're building towards that. Uh, Justin Scott won't play with John Baptiste. John Baptiste is a grad transfer. He'll play this year. And if Justin Scott is at Notre Dame, he won't be able to play until next year. But both add depth to the defensive line. And when I say depth, I'm talking about numbers. The defensive line doesn't have a numbers problem. We just don't know if who can play. It's not like the situation with the wide receivers last year where you literally had numbers issues. Like you just didn't have the bodies. In the spring to practice, in the fall, you just didn't have the healthy bodies, right? And then you lose Avery Davis, right? Then you have other injuries. at the wide receiver position. You had guys fighting through injuries in fall camp because they knew they didn't have numbers. So it was just difficult. It was difficult. The defensive line, they have numbers along the defensive line. It's just a matter of who can get the job done. And that's what they have to figure out in the spring, and that's what they have to figure out in the fall. But they believe in the talent that they have, especially the young talent. Josh Burnham, Botello, they believe in the guys. It's just a matter of, like I said, do they get the job done? Do they get the job done? Eric Ward says, sorry, Shaun, but with the losses we had against Marshall and Stanford, I think we go 9-3. I mean, if you're talking about them losing the three games, the big three games, yeah. But this is what confuses me. Like, you were the same person when Sam Hartman came and we were saying relax about Sam Hartman. Like, you jumped on us for being even keel on Sam Hartman and not overreacting to him coming to Notre Dame. But now you say they're going 9-3 comparing them to last year when they didn't have competent quarterback play to start the season in both of those matchups. Now they do. So I don't get the correlation. Like, do you believe in the quarterback or don't you believe in the quarterback? Do you believe that the quarterback situation is better or don't you believe that the quarterback situation is better? I mean, that's something that Shaun, please tell me that Indy is already on Los Espinosa in Illinois for the 2025 class. I don't think they've offered him yet. He's on the radar. I know Tommy is in Chicago for, I want to say, the next 2 to 3 days, culminating with him being at St. Ignatius's basketball game on Thursday night. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But as of now, I don't think he's been one of the 25 offers. And his older brother AJ uh, plays in the NFL, went to Iowa, was a very good player. So it won't be long. I'm sure he'll get an offer. Another super chat from Truman. Appreciate you, bro. Is there a running back you can't wait to see play with Diggs and Estime? I think, of course, Jadarian Price, just based off what I saw in practices and then in the spring game. You know, he would be at the top of my list because I just want to see if he's healthy. That's one of my first, one of the first things my eyes are going to fixate on when I get to that first spring practice is how does Jadarian Price look? How is he moving? How is he running? Does he have the same speed? Does he have the same shiftiness coming back off that Achilles? And because they have depth at the running back position, I would be cool with him not really coming back until week 3 or 4 during the season. If he didn't start playing at the beginning of the season, I would have no problem with that. Give him as much time to get himself back fully healthy and ready to go, and just don't rush him back. Josh Buffo, the motivational business banker. We appreciate you, Josh. Toughest game quarterback wise is USC. OSU and Clemson are breaking in new quarterbacks and coordinators. ND is primed for a run with the old line running back and wide receivers to have a legit quarterback now. 12-0 playoff run. Let's go. Hey, Josh, hey, it's possible. It's absolutely possible. Matt D, yo, I agree with you. And that's one thing I can say about Ryan Day. He has gained a reputation on the circuit for developing quarterbacks. Now, you might say Ohio State really hasn't developed quarterback that's been good on the next level in the NFL. And you will be correct in saying that, right? Justin Fields is trying to change that narrative slowly but surely for the Chicago Bears. And CJ Stroud, as he enters the NFL draft, will join him in that task. But Ryan Day, when it comes to developing guys on the college level, pretty good track record. Pretty good track record. When you look at what Justin Fields was able to do, when you look at what CJ Stroud was able to do, and I fully expect Cal McCord to come in and be a pretty good quarterback, right? Game plan, development. They're just not really a tough team, right? And ultimately, if I think Notre Dame really showed that. Like, let's keep it a buck. Notre Dame showed that, and this goes to what many of you guys are saying in the chat. I think they tried to come in and finesse Notre Dame, and Notre Dame pretty much just physically and schematically forced them into running the ball. The only difference is, I believe Notre Dame not only was worn down because of how much time they spent on the field defensively late in that game, because the offense really couldn't get the ball moving and take advantage of certain situations, and they just couldn't tackle late in that game. I mean, they had opportunities to bring Mayan Williams down and had arm tackling, linebackers in the wrong gap, out of position. Like I said, they could have been weary. That could have been part of it. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to make those plays. Like, you're up 10-7 at that point. I don't care what the offense hasn't done. 10-7, you have the opportunity to hold them to a field goal. We all know what happened. Big third down, 3rd and 8. They make a big play on 2nd down, get them in 3rd and long, where they had been successful all night against Ohio State in 3rd and long. And, Al Golden, they lose to Reed Bracey, and Al Golden comes out of the timeout with one of his world famous safety blitzes from 15 yards off the ball. And from that point, things went downhill. So it's it's one of those things, man. It's just one of those things. But I think Notre Dame was the first team, in my opinion, that showed that Ohio State wasn't really a tough team. I think Notre Dame just got tired at the end of that game. They got tired, and they were able to take advantage of Notre Dame being tired defensively and run the ball to be effective. And then CJ Stroud made some clutch 3rd down throws late in that game. So look, Domawop, I agree, but his teams are soft and his teams choke. When they play tough teams, when go look at the last 3 games. Like Maryland, go watch the Ohio State Maryland game. Maryland physically pushed Ohio State around. That's why they stayed in that game. Because that's what you can do to an Ohio State team. They want to come in, finesse you. That's what Ryan Day wants to do. He wants to throw the ball 45, 50 times. And if you can shut that down and force them to do other things, they struggle. They struggle. As great as Oh man. Remember we posted the video when Holly Rowe went to the camp, right? They have wide receivers running all over the place. They're like 5, 7 deep at the wide receivers as she's eating her fruit and talking about the shish kebab she had. And just, man, pumping Ohio State up, right? And everybody wants to point to losing Marvin Harrison Jr. in that game, which is a big loss. But you have a plethora of wide receivers. What's the problem? Can they run and catch? Because that's what wide receivers do, run and catch. Egbuka was still out there. He made plays early in the game. Where was he in the fourth quarter? Where was he? He had an opportunity to catch a ball in that last drive where they ultimately had to settle for a 50-yard field goal to win the game, and Noah Ruggles missed. Step up, make a play. Step up and make a play. And that's what Notre Dame is going to have to do this year. They're going to have to step up and make plays. This is not a year for excuses. You're going to have an opportunity in these three big games to win games. Step up and make the plays. I don't care if it's low scoring. I don't care if it's high scoring. Do whatever you have to do to win the game. That's what championship teams do. Yeah, eat shish kebabs, fruit, sweat pouring down her cheeks, her forehead, and she's just man, just falling in love with Ohio State. Still one of the craziest videos. I'm thinking ND is Boots Ennis this season. Ooh, I like that. Boots Ennis, Philly. That's tough dude. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him against Bud or Spence. Which teams are Bud and Spence? That's a great question, Jason Hewlett. That's a great question. That's a fantastic question. Which teams would be Bud and Spence? Georgia has to be Bud, right? Yes. Georgia has to be Bud Crawford. Because that's the champ. They're the champs. They can win. They can win a lot of different ways. They've shown that. Back-to-back championships has to be Bud Crawford. And then Spence, he's fought through a lot recently. Came back, still looked good. Now he's dealing with something else. Maybe Alabama. Maybe. Because I think Alabama has gone through a lot of turmoil, losing the championship game in Georgia and then having a disappointing season with the talent they had last year. Golding leaving, going to Ole Miss, even though he probably is going to be let go anyway by Nick Saban. And they're probably going to change OCs. Bill O'Brien won't be there either. So I would say Alabama. Like if you find a better connection, let me know. 'Cause I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. Honey glazed holly. Oh man, y'all wow. Y'all getting buck wild. You're buck wild in the chat today, Seven Mules. Honey glazed holly. Look, relax. Truman Dumel. Talk about the development of Aiden Gabira and Howard Cross since they arrived at South Bend and what they've become. I think Howard Cross has really become a very good 30 to 35 snap disruptor and pass rusher on the interior. He's probably the best interior pass rusher right now until someone else comes along and takes that title in practices this spring or in the fall. I'm very pleased with his development. I think he'll find his way onto an NFL roster. I really do. And when he gets to the NFL, I think he's going to have enough versatility as a pass rusher to get some really good coaching at his size and possibly, if not be an interior rusher, situational rusher on passing downs, which is pretty much 65% of the time in the NFL right now, or even more, maybe an end in a 3-4 with a certain team. He might be able to do that as well. So it should be interesting. That's a good question, Truman. Thank you for that. That's that's but Aiden Gabira, in my opinion, you know what? Aiden Gabira gets talked about a lot because just physically, his measurables lead people to believe that he can be a force along the defensive line. And you know how you watch your wrestling favorite wrestling match, and Aiden Gabira. Now stay with me because I might show my age a little bit, but those of you that can relate to it and put a different example in the chat, feel free. Aiden Gabira for me was like watching Kevin Von Erich. Kevin Von Erich from W Wrestling back in the day fought Ric Flair for the title, I think, on 4 different occasions. And I think eventually, every time he fought Ric Flair, either he basically every time he fought Ric Flair, if you go watch the match, he kicked Ric Flair's butt the majority of the match. This is my boy, Kevin Von Erich is my favorite Von Erich. Barefoot, kind of like Ricky Steamboat is tough, had the claw just like David, you know, had the abdominal claw and the head claw. He's just an all around technician. Love Kevin Von Erich. Every time he fought Flair, like Flair would cheat, get disqualified. Um, what was the bum referee from down there? Fritz something. But I remember one time, Kevin Von Erich, dude, he's battering Ric Flair. Ric Flair's bleeding from the forehead. Man, he hits him with the claw, then he hits him with the abdominal claw. Him and Flair going at it. The referee gets knocked out the ring. He's outside. David Manning comes in, the other referee, and he's trying to referee the match. He gets knocked down. Flair throws Kevin Von Erich over the top rope. He comes back in the ring. Kevin Von Erich throws Flair over the top rope. And when he throws Flair over the top rope, Fritz, the other referee, the first referee, is just waking up and coming to. He sees Flair coming over the top rope. Flair gets back in the ring. Kevin body slams him, goes to the top rope, backward somersault off the top rope. 1, 2, 3. Wins the championship, right? His bigger brother, David Von Erich, comes from the back. They're in the corner. They're celebrating. Everybody's going crazy down in Texas for the Texas boys. He's the world champion. He just beat Ric Flair. And here comes Fritz in the ring talking to David Manning like, no, 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 no. He threw him over the top rope. And it's like, what? And they award the match to Ric Flair and he keeps his championship. And that's Aiden Gabira. It's like, man, you keep hearing about what he's doing in practice. You know he has the measurables. Everything's great. You're waiting for him to pop. He just can't pick up enough weight, maybe, to make the impact. And you just keep waiting. You keep feeling like you're right there where he's going to break out, and it doesn't happen. Just like I just kept waiting for Kevin Von Erich to finally be the champion. Like he's right there. And something would always happen in his matches with Ric Flair to keep him from being a champion. And it's the same thing, man. It's the same thing. It's almost like watching that match where your favorite wrestler is fighting somebody and they keep going 1, 2, and I swear on that third way down, the shoulder keeps popping up. And that's Aiden Gabira. And hopefully, we can get that 3 count with him and he can have a breakout year at some point at Notre Dame. So that's a good question. But for me, that is Aiden Gabira and his time in Notre Dame We're just waiting for him to break out, and hopefully this year will be that year. Lucky Lefty Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Follow us on YouTube, Lucky Lefty Podcast. Smash the like button, share, hit the notification bell. Let everybody know. Lucky Lefty Podcast. We spin it different. All right. Left isn't here, so we're gonna hop into this top five conversation with Sam Hartman. Is Sam Hartman a top five quarterback in college football next year? Um, right off the bat, I'm definitely saying yes. Right? Just right off the bat, I'm definitely saying yes. And then I have to take a step back because I feel like each and every year there's going to be one to two newcomers to the conversation, right? So I would say Joe Milton is somebody mid-season that I could say hey, he's better than Sam Hartman, depending upon what he's doing, right? Because I easily said Hendon Hooker was better than Sam Hartman this year. Easily. I would not have said that coming into the season, but once the season started, I saw what he was doing for Tennessee. It's like, yeah, Hendon Hooker is a better quarterback than Sam Hartman this year. Joe Milton has the same quarterback, same system. Better tools than Hendon Hooker, in my opinion. Much better arm than Hendon Hooker. That system that spreads out the wide receivers outside the hashes and just gives vertical opportunities on each play, with Josh Heupel being a really good play caller, he could jump up, right? Heck, Dante Moore is a freshman with Chip Kelly at UCLA. You saw the bowl game. You saw what he did. You saw the talent. Chip Kelly has a lot to work with that young man. You know, is Sam Hartman better than Bo Nix? Is he? Based upon last year, would you say Sam Hartman is better than Bo Nix? Would you say that Sam Hartman is better than Michael Penix Jr. at Washington? Go look at the stats. Just go look at the stats and what he was able to do. Would you be able to clearly say that Sam Hartman is better than Michael Penix Jr.? I'm not talking about career. I'm talking about was he a better quarterback than Michael Penix Jr. last year? Because we're not talking about a career. We don't care what Sam Hartman did at Wake Forest. What can you do at Notre Dame in 2023, specifically against Ohio State, USC, and Clemson? That's why you're being brought here. You're not coming to Notre Dame to get Notre Dame to 9-3. That's not why Sam Hartman was thought about, recruited, and ultimately brought to Notre Dame. That's not it. That's not it. So I'm just throwing names out there. Because right off the top, I'm like most of you. Heck yeah, Sam Hartman is a top five quarterback. And then I took a step back and I really looked at how college football historically goes, where you have two quarterbacks just come out of nowhere, right? And you're like, Drake May came out of nowhere. Sam Howell was the incumbent for many years in North Carolina. Next thing you know, here's Drake May. He's on the scene. Now this dude is like the number one quarterback going to the 24 draft by some. No one saw that coming. We didn't see it coming. Who's going to be that guy? Could it be a Cal McCord? Could it be a Cade Klubnik that makes a jump and becomes one of those guys? We don't know. We don't know. But what we know for sure is that you have Caleb Williams and you definitely have Drake May in front of Hartman. And then you have to ask yourself about the next guy or two that's going to jump up. Then you have to ask yourself about a Bo Nix. You have to ask yourself about a Joe Milton if he stays on the same track that Hendon Hooker was on. You have to ask yourself about a Michael Penix. These are the questions you have to ask. So he could be top five. Sam Hartman could be. Sam Hartman could be the sixth or seventh best quarterback in the country, and Notre Dame can still get to the playoffs. That's the beautiful thing about the situation. Hartman does not have to be top five based upon performance. He's in a system where he doesn't need to throw for 300 yards to win games. He doesn't have to. And I think a lot of people, if you were to come back and say Sam Hartman isn't a top five quarterback or won't be a top five quarterback next year, some people might take that as being disrespectful. And it's not disrespectful at all. It's just looking at the landscape and then understanding what Sam Hartman was asked to do at Wake Forest and what he's going to be asked to do at Notre Dame, which, in my opinion, are going to be two totally different things. Is Sam Hartman going to be better than J.J. McCarthy next year? Does J.J. McCarthy? J.J. McCarthy took a step this year. Does he take another step next year? Drew Aller, first time quarterback for Penn State. Penn State will be a top 10 team. We get to see who he is. And I just think it's going to be very interesting. But the great thing is, and thank you for this. Good comment, God's Thumb 22. Devin Leary has an opportunity to get healthy, right the ship, new location, and do what he does. So, I just wanted to point that out because I think he's fourth in Heisman odds right now. And that's very much because of him, but it's also because of Notre Dame. The brand, the opportunity to win, and the situation that he's walking into. It really is a good position for Sam Hartman. Heck, it would have been a great position for anybody, any one of these quarterbacks that were in the transfer portal would have benefited greatly from ending up at Notre Dame. That's easy. That's absolutely easy. You know what, Brandon? That's interesting. Jackson Dart in his second year down there at Ole Miss, I, I, he bears watching. I agree. I agree. He was a better quarterback this year than he was at USC, and I expect him to be a better quarterback next year than he was in his first year under Lane Kiffin. That's a good call, Brandon. That's a very good call on that. Yeah. And we'll see. I agree with you, my brother. We'll see. But the first part is what I agree with. I ain't seen a lit Penn State quarterback my entire life. I disagree with that. I disagree with that. My boy that just took them to the Rose Bowl. I love that little kid. Love that little kid. He wore number 9. His name starts with an M. His last name escapes me right now. That dude was an ultimate competitor, dude. Ultimate competitor. Trace McSorley, yes. Trace McSorley was a baller. A baller. That dude was lit. I love Trace. Trace used to ball, man. Trace used to ball. I'll save this one for later. And from Drew Aller, should have been at Notre Dame, honestly, from what I hear. He should have been in Notre Dame. And now he's at Penn State. And from what I've heard, that dude has a cannon. Cannon. All right. So, yeah, that's it. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for Sam Hartman to come in and prove himself. But I'm just not sure if he's going to be considered one of the top 5 quarterbacks in college football. And that's not a bad thing, right? Because we were in neutral as a podcast when the decision was made and it was officially announced that Sam Hartman was coming to Notre Dame. And we called some slack for that. That's cool. That's cool. We could deal with the backlash. We could deal with the slack, right? Because we didn't just immediately jump on the national championship boat when Sam Hartman decided to come to Notre Dame, because we understand that football is not just the quarterback and scoring. Some other things that you have to do and some other things that need to be shored up before we start talking about legit national championship contenders. And we played neutral. And even with this, we're just being honest and looking at college football and asking ourselves, I don't know what he threw. Sam threw for 3,800 last year, right? I don't know if Sam throws for 3,800 with Notre Dame. There'll be no need. I think the last offense that was that prolific was like one of the Oklahoma offenses, and then the USC '05 offense. It was something crazy. I think Lindell White, Matt Leinart had 3,800 yards passing. Now this is just Matt Leinart, Heisman Award winner, like one of his best seasons ever. He had 3,800 yards passing. Lindell White and Reggie Bush had 3,767 yards of total offense as the running backs. 50-50, man. So that means the running backs accounted for pretty much 50% of the offense, and Liner's passing was like the other 50%. And that's balanced. But we're talking about an all-time offense. And they had 2 receivers over 1,000 yards. No, they had 1 receiver over 1,000 yards. And then Steve Smith was like 32 yards short. And Jared was over 1,000. It was just crazy, man. Their numbers were crazy. So now when you look at Notre Dame, that man, that's another question. If Notre Dame has 1,000-yard receiver, who would it be this year? Like, who would be your vote? I don't know if Estime and Diggs can get to 3,700 yards total, but I think they can get to 3,000 collectively, total offense, yards from scrimmage. I think they can get to 3,000. And I think Sam Hartman, 3,500, 33 to 3,500, just because he's not being asked weekly to do what he had to do to win games at Wake Forest. But he's going to be far more efficient, in my opinion. So, more touchdowns, probably, less interceptions. So, he could be top 5 on the fringe, and then he could be outside the top 5. Either way, the Notre Dame offense should be absolutely fantastic. Lucky Lefty Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Follow us on YouTube at Lucky Lefty Pod on Instagram and Twitter. CFB Nation, in conjunction with Irish Breakdown, all of our great content. Leave 5 stars. We appreciate your comments. We respond to all questions and comments. especially on our YouTube page. We appreciate you guys. The climb to 5,000 is real, and it's all because of you that we've had the success that we enjoy today. And we get up and talk Notre Dame football and college football and everything because of you. It's the Lucky Lefty podcast. You already know we spin it different. All right, let's get into it. Uh, It's been a long time since I left you without a dope to step two. But I'm about to get into it with you right now, man. You know, a long time ago, my dad told me, son, no matter what's going on in your life, you have to choose happiness. He said happiness is a choice. And I remember when he told me, I really didn't have a clear understanding of what he meant. And it wasn't until I went through a few things as an adult that I understood, wow, now you're right. There is a way to still be happy in the midst of trials, tribulations, things not being as good as they used to be, transition, whatever it is. And that's what I want for Notre Dame fans. That would be my prayer for Notre Dame fans, like the entire fan base. So when I look at a situation that faces us now, it takes me back to Tuesday night as I sat there and I watched Justin Scott play with St. Ignatius, the Wolfpack, against Montini Catholic, come away with a double digit win. I watched him defend twos and threes on the perimeter. And I watched his lateral quickness and his explosion. And I started picturing it on a Saturday, a nice brisk fall Saturday in South Bend, Indiana. And then I got a chance to talk to the young man. So when I talked to the young man, he was very clear with his intent on what he wanted to do. He wanted to focus on basketball because they do have a team that is capable of making a deep run in the state playoffs. Very capable. Sophomore point guard Phoenix Gill, who's a big time Illinois Power Five prospect, offers from Illinois, Michigan State, all types of teams around the Power Five in college basketball. Sophomore son of Kendall Gill. Baron Browning, upperclassman, big, rugged three, can handle the ball, can shoot, defends his butt off. They have size down there besides Justin Scott, and they have a nice little bench. They go about 8, 9 deep. So, yeah, they can make a run. And for him to tell me, I really want to focus on basketball, and then after basketball, probably make a couple of more visits and then make my decision because I dropped the top 8 because I was ready to get it over with. And, I'm ready to get, I'm just ready to get the process done. Okay. And he starts telling me about the things that he's looking for. NIL is like, yeah, I'm a 5-star. I understand it's part of the conversation. But let me tell you about some of the things that have impressed me from the trips that I've been on. And he starts to talk about some of the things that have stayed with him and impressed him. Leave there, and ultimately, I come away with what I always knew. What I always knew. Nothing has changed. Like this kid is the same kid that he was this time last year when I was talking to him just under a year ago. and he was sitting waiting for Notre Dame to make an offer. Like, man, to the point where it was like, man, to the point where I had to tell him, like, dude, the offer's coming. The offer's coming. And he's just like, all right, he's a 5-star. March 17th comes. They send out the offers to the 24 kids. Justin Scott doesn't get one. He's a 5-star. I mean, I don't know. So, as a kid from Chicago who always had Notre Dame at the top of the list, I don't know. Maybe it would have made me feel a certain way. I don't know. But this kid stayed true. He's the same. We talked to him today. The love for Notre Dame. Anytime you mention Notre Dame, anything about it, the gleam in his eye, the little smile comes on his face. He can't hide it. As much as I think things have been mishandled, he still can't hide the love that he has for Notre Dame. And so I came away from that and went on Irish Breakdown the very next day, or Brian and Ryan, and literally talked about what this young man's plans were and where Notre Dame sat. That same night when he left me, he went and did an interview with Rivals. The interviewer, because I think it was Clint Cosgrove, to give him credit. I'm not sure if it was, but I believe it was Cosgrove. Starts off the interview by saying, "You were considered a Notre Dame lean for the longest." Now, this is something I wrote about on Irish Breakdown when he visited over the summer. You can go check the article out. After his visit, I wrote, he's a Notre Dame lean, has been all the time, has been since he waited for an offer back in February of 2022 when I was talking to him. Not only that, his family is huge on education, spearheaded by his mom. And last but not least, it's going to be tough to get him out of the Midwest because that's really his desire to be able to play and be near his family. And lo and behold, at that time, his top schools were Ohio State, Wisconsin, Notre Dame, Michigan. And if you ask me today what his top schools were, I would tell you Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State. We'll get to the Bulldogs in a second. Notre Dame blitzes Chicago on Friday and Indiana. They stopped by to see the coaches at St. Ignatius. He has a game that night. So I'm talking to him after the game. And while I'm talking to him, he posts on social media that he's going to make a decision at his announcement on the 31st of January. Now, why is this shocking? It's shocking, number one, because it was totally out of nowhere. And two, that's not what he just told me Tuesday. So there had to be something seismic that took place between Tuesday and Friday night that got his emotions to the point to where he felt like, I'm ready to make a decision. Now, the only thing that I can think of that could have that much weight on his heart and his mind was the Notre Dame coaches showing up in mass on Friday. I talked to him Friday night. I said, yo, today meant a lot to you, didn't it? His response was, definitely. Yeah, definitely. My next question was, you pretty much know where you want to go. You're close, huh? He said, yeah, I'm real close. I didn't need to ask him anything else. So I backed off. I said it on Monday on the recruiting show. I'm pretty confident in knowing what's going to happen on the 31st. Like, people could be skeptical. People can have PTSD when it comes to Notre Dame recruiting. Let's talk about that for a second because it goes back to my original point. You choose to be in that mindset. Happiness is a choice. I've been a Notre Dame fan since the early 80s. Do you understand the amount of tough losses, disappointing losses? Picking up magazines from the mailbox with loose emoji talking about lost recruits, recruits that went to the awards dinner that ultimately didn't choose Notre Dame, the loss of Randy Moss, the loss of a Thomas Jones to Virginia, recruits not choosing Notre Dame at the last minute. You know how many disappointments I've gone through as a Notre Dame fan? My suggestion is learn how to move on, man. My heart is connected to Notre Dame like anybody else. When Peyton Bowen was going through his theatrics, I'm not choosing to dwell on that. I'm not choosing to dwell on that. I'm not. When Keon Keeley, leading up to his decommitment, when the buzz was out there, doesn't change my outlook on Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. Would I love to have him as part of the program? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I choose to be happy about what's going on, regardless of what the trimmings are or what the situation is. I just choose to look at it that way. It's my choice. I'm not about to be a pessimist. Got too much to be thankful for, personally and as a Notre Dame fan. Because I think I've got my return on investment from what I've put into Notre Dame as a fan. Even without the national championship, I got a pretty good return on investment. Pretty good. I can complain about Brian Kelly, but guess Brian Kelly, what you did, the doldrum you brought Notre Dame from, what I gave as a fan, I appreciate it. Pretty good return on investment. Even picked up a brother, a true brother in life named Malik Zaire. I'm cool with it. No national championship, but I'm cool with the return on my fandom. I'm happy. I choose to be happy. Here's the key. The young man got emotional about an event and said, man, I'm ready to make a decision. Here's the key. I don't know if you ever played spades, but Notre Dame is doing a great job in college football. They put college football on notice. Because recruiting is just like spades. And you have to know what's in your hand and you have to know how to play it. And Notre Dame knows there's only a certain time in that game where you're going to get dealt that hand. And Notre Dame has been dealt a great hand. That great hand is 315 pounds, 6'5", and he's an hour and a half from campus. And he just happens to be the 5-star that grew up as a huge Notre Dame fan and has been a huge Notre Dame lean for almost 2 years. This is when you get like 5, 6 spades in your hands. That's what Notre Dame hit on early with Justin Scott. Now, I wish Notre Dame had played their spades a little bit earlier. Because if they had played their spades a little bit earlier, in my opinion, this recruitment would be over. Then when you play the spades earlier, you pull spades from everybody else because they don't have as many as you do because you got 6 or 7 in your hand. And once you pull that spades, you can lead with whatever suit and just pull all the rest of the books. See, I don't like people that have the spades in their hand and hold on to the spades. And unfortunately, that's what Notre Dame did in this recruitment. They had the spades, but they decided to hold on to the spades. See, when you hold on to your spades, you give your opponent the opportunity to win books with bull crap cards. In other words, you let that book slide. And they let some things slide with Justin Scott. They let Michigan slide in and get a little bit closer. They let Ohio State slide in and get a little bit closer. They allowed Nick Saban in Alabama to come into play. They allowed Deion Sanders in Colorado to come into play. And you know they coming with NIL straight ahead. Because they don't have anything else that they can really win the war with, Colorado. Then you let USC, and how much, this is Justin Scott's words, he loves the campus. He loves the architecture of the campus and the buildings and the weather. You let all of that come into play because you held on to the spades when you could have just bled everybody dry and ended this thing early. So what happens when you hold on to the spades? Sometimes you might not have the highest spade because their partner literally might not have a spade, which means your opponent, even though they don't have 6 or 7, they have 4. And they just might have 2 of the highest spades out of the suit. So you can mess around and throw a spade out there. You can mess around and throw that ace out there and it get caught by the little joker. You can mess around and throw that little joker out there and they get caught by the big joker. See, that's what happens when you hold on to your spades. Let me tell you the great thing about this. Justin Scott deletes his tweet about his announcement on yesterday. I don't care if he did delete that tweet. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the fact that he wants to play near home. It doesn't change the fact that he's been a Notre Dame lean for the longest. It doesn't change the fact that his family is all about education and that's what they're leaning on. And it doesn't change the fact that he's talking about culture, coaching, and accountability as the main things he's looking for. None of that has changed. I said it in 2022 during the summer. I said it during the season as we approach the season. I said it after I talked to the man last week. Nothing's changed. He has been the same person. But what we do see is that he can be impacted by certain things. It's a teenager. It's a teenager. He got emotional, put out a tweet, said he was ready. Felt good. You know where you want to go? Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure I know where I want to go. I'm close, real close. All right. Notre Dame fans go crazy. For what? What's changed? So what if he doesn't make the announcement on January 31st? What's changed? You know what's wild about it? What's wild about it is when I gave the intel from Tuesday and then gave the intel from Friday, the majority you still had doubts. Even when he tweeted out he was making his announcement, most of you didn't even believe it was Notre Dame. So if you didn't believe it was Notre Dame then, why are you worried about him deleting the tweet? You were pessimistic then. I can see if you were like me, in a happy place, and then you saw the tweet deleted. I can see you saying, oh, what's going on? But most of you were pessimistic in the first place. So what's the big deal? January 31st, February 1st, February 8th, March the 2nd. Who cares when the announcement comes? You just want it to be Notre Dame. If it comes on National Signing Day in December, you just want it to be Notre Dame. Who cares? Who cares? Because you didn't know what he was going to choose anyway. You made that clear. Excuse me. You made that clear. But nothing has changed with the parameters of his recruitment. You know what happened? A young man, once again, emotionally responded to a visit. And wait a minute. This is my advice to you. I've been with my wife 31 years, combination of dating and marriage. 31. High school sweethearts, childhood loves, whatever you want to call it. Been through some stuff, breakups, tough times, trying to build careers together, tough times, budgeting to get to a happy place. But we're happier now than we've ever been. You know why? Because we learned that lesson that my father gave me. Your happiness is a choice. And right now, as that young man deleted that tweet, Notre Dame fans, you have a choice to be happy. There's too many things in this recruitment of this young man that you can focus on to be happy about than to be worried about a darn tweet being deleted. He's still a Notre Dame lean. He's still from the city of Chicago. He still goes to a prestigious Catholic school with plenty of Notre Dame alum, and he's surrounded by people that want him to go to Notre Dame. His mother loves Notre Dame because her main topic and her main issue is education, and that's his best friend. That's who he leans on the most. On top of the fact that obviously a visit from Marcus Freeman meant the hell of a lot. You got all of that that's happened. And the fan base wants to go crazy over a tweet that was deleted. So what? If it's not 31st of January, who cares when it happens? He originally told me that more than likely it was going to be after the basketball season ends in Illinois. That's March. I don't care when it happens. As long as the parameters stay the same, Notre Dame is in a darn good place. Who cares when it happens? Who cares? So choose to be happy about the young man's recruitment instead of focusing on something that means absolutely nothing. The big dogs walked in the door and said, "We want you." Who wouldn't respond to that? Who? Tell me who. The two-time champions, who, by the way, responded to Notre Dame. See, this is why I love what Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame are doing. They're causing panic. See, because Georgia and Alabama, they like the slow play stuff. You know why? Because they're used to Notre Dame and Brian Kelly not really giving a darn about guys like this, not really going after guys like this aggressively. That's what they're used to. And they kind of got the same vibe from Notre Dame. But then all of a sudden, Notre Dame got uber aggressive. And Kirby Smart and his staff saw that tweet Friday night and they panicked. And they said, "Oh, we can't. Wait a minute. Hold on. What's going on? He's ready to announce. And we haven't really talked to him. We haven't gotten down here to Athens. We got to do something. We got to get up there to Chicago." The rest of college football is reacting to Marcus Freeman. It's just not the Justin Scott thing. Go look at how many schools have offered kids after Notre Dame offered them the past week. what Notre Dame has learned from this Justin Scott thing. You know what? We got to get in early and play our spades much earlier. And then we can slide some things through towards the end. That's why they're offering 25 kids. They had a 25 receiver on campus. Now all of a sudden, Michigan wants to offer them. Another Big Ten school wants to offer them. But his mom has already tweeted, a fantastic time. We love Notre Dame. Notre Dame needs to keep playing those spades early. Take advantage of the situation. You're going to catch some of these giants in college football sleep at the wheel. And that's exactly what Notre Dame did when it came to Justin Scott. They caught Kirby Smart in Georgia sleep at the wheel. So now Georgia panics, gets up here, and the advantage of being the big dog is, yo, you can walk up to the club and go straight to VIP and not stand in line. You're the big dog. They went in, they had their say. Tweet comes down, working to get them down to Athens for a visit. Here's the key. The young man is still the young man. He's a young man that's a family man. He's a young man that's a Midwest man at heart, and he has plenty of integrity. He's never told me one thing that he didn't follow through on. Not one since the time I started talking to him. Not one. And I'm a pretty good judge of character. And if I was him and Georgia walked through the door, you darn right I'm listening. I'll be a fool not to. But just because I listen doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. I gotta listen. See, this is where you have to choose happiness, right? Been with my wife 31 years. Fabulous relationship. My wife is fine, dude. A lot of you probably look at me now and say, well, man, Shaun outkicked this coverage. I just put on weight. I was that dude when I was younger. So I pulled her because I could pull her. She's fine. And when she goes out, whether she's with me or she's with her girls, I don't ask her to cover up. She has a fantastic figure. Show your shoulders, baby. Show those beautiful legs. Show them track legs. Show those thighs. Be you. You love yourself, dress like it. Go kill them. Because regardless of whether or not you're with me, you represent me. You know what I love the most? I love when she goes out because I know others are going to look. I know dudes are going to stare because she's fine. And when I see dudes staring, it makes me feel better because I don't want to be with nobody that nobody else wants. I don't want you if nobody else wants you. I'm happy she's fine. I'm happy dudes still try to come at her, even though she has her wedding ring on. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. I've walked up on her at the mall. Dudes trying to talk to her. I don't walk up like, yo, what's up with this? I stand back and let her handle it. Because I'm confident. I'm confident. Notre Dame fans, be confident in what you got with Justin Scott. Don't be that dude that sees Georgia walking up looking at Justin Scott, fawning over Justin Scott, falling in love with Justin Scott, telling Justin Scott, man, I see you got that little ring on your finger, but what's up? Can we be friends? Let Justin Scott handle it. Let him handle it. Because he's shown himself to be a young man of integrity. Let him handle it. Because regardless of January the 31st, February the 2nd, whatever date, I still believe he's coming home. See, that's why I'm cool. She can go out with her girls. Heck, she's been to Jamaica with her girls. She's been to Barbados with her girls. She's been to Aruba with her girls. I'm talking about my wife. I'm cool. Go kick it. Have a blast. Because I know you're coming home. And when you get home, I know you miss me. I know you did. I know. I know. Couldn't stop thinking about me, could you? I know. So let Georgia talk. They can do all that talking. He still has Notre Dame on his mind. Still has Notre Dame in his heart. Still talks to his best friend, Cam Williams, just about every day. Still responding to Cam Williams and CJ Carr's Instagram posts the way he did. That didn't change. He didn't delete those tweets, did he? Go look at those tweets. Did he delete his responses to their tweets? When he put up the clover, did he delete that? I didn't think so. Yo, choose to be happy, man. That's my suggestion. That's my prayer for all Notre Dames in the fan base. Notre Dame has given us enough to be happy about, even if we haven't had a championship since 1988. Be happy. Even with Keon Keeley and Peyton Bowen, be happy. Because Justin Scott is Justin Scott. Don't be that insecure fan base that can't see the good and what's going on. It can only focus on a tweet deleted about an announcement. It's not worth it. Be happy. Because going into February, the class already sits at 7, and Notre Dame's probably going to hit double digits in commitments. And it'll only be February. We haven't even gotten to the spring visits. And they might be halfway through with a class that's probably going to sit around 22 to 23 recruits. So, what are we really talking about? Be happy. You didn't have your quarterback last year until December. You have your 5-star quarterback. Be happy. You didn't have your first receiver until the spring, summer. You already got a 5-star that's ranked in the top 50. Be happy. You didn't have a 4 or 5-star, number one all purpose back in the class. You do. Be happy. You didn't have a big time tackle in the class this early last year. You do with Peter Jones. Be happy. And you got a big 6'5", 315-pound 5-star that adores Notre Dame. So what if he goes to Athens? Athens, at the end of the day, just doesn't add up with the main things on his list. Be cool with other schools hawking and staring at your girl. It's cool. It's cool. Okay, Kirby, you panicked? Realize, hey, yo, we got to at least try. Kirby knew what was up. Kirby knew what that decision more than likely was about to be. So cool. Let Kirby throw out that little joker too early. That's what my tweet meant last night. Because they don't have the big joker, because Georgia does not match up with his wants. From what he said and what he's looking for, that ain't Georgia. Georgia just happens to be the 2-time national champions. That's who they are. And they got a darn good track record with interior linemen. It is what it is. Yeah, that will get your attention. It will definitely get my attention. But to react the way the fan base reacted to the deleting of a tweet, you would think you all knew where he was going. And based upon the intel I gave Tuesday and Friday and Monday on the recruiting show, you still had doubts. You still had doubts. So what's the problem? So what? He deleted a tweet. So what? Georgia came to see him. It was panic time. They didn't have a choice. They had to come in and probably offer and throw everything at him. So have confidence. Let him in. Justin, go handle your business. Do your due diligence. Do what you got to do. Because Georgia was here, but Tommy will be in the building on Thursday. Because Notre Dame didn't just make a visit and think that it was over. Mm-mm. Tommy will be here Thursday. More than likely, somebody else will be there the following week, and somebody else will be there the following week. Because Justin Scott knows. Go do what you got to do. This is home, and we ain't going nowhere. This is home. Just the opinions of Shaun Davis. That's all. So be happy. Notre Dame has given us all plenty to be happy about for the investment we poured into them as fans. They ain't Notre Dame. We are. ND. Lucky Lefty Podcast. That's it. That's all I have to say about Justin Scott and his recruitment. Notre Dame is on the road. As I said, Tommy Rees, he is in Chicago for most of the week. Definitely. He's going to be checking in on people, 24 and 25 kids here. Then I think he's going to get up to Minnesota to see the wide receiver Daniel Friedrich. Al Golden's on the road. Checking out Jalen McClain out in West Orange, New Jersey. Dylan McCullough is on the road down in the dirty South. Looking at some running backs. Chancey Stuckey, man, he's going to the Lou. Going to the Lou. Jeremiah McClellan, Ryan Wingo, Jared Parker. He's going to the state of Tennessee, checking on talent down there. And then Harry Easton, he's going to be on the East Coast, checking out talent. And while they're checking out talent, they're sending out offers to the 25 class. Once again, getting good hands and playing their spades early. That's how we're going to get it done, right? I think Chris O'Leary is also on the road in Texas, looking in on Nigel Smith, who's another big-time defensive tackle that's very important in this class. So just a few names for you guys to keep tabs on as we move forward. Mike Mickens going back to the same school, and it's not the same school, but the same state that produced Benjamin Morrison to look at a kid named Jeremiah Newcomb from Castile out there in Arizona. And if Mike Mickens is looking at him, I trust him. Same thing with Harry Easton. That's why I didn't understand the backlash from the offer that went out to Prescott, the kid from Indiana, talking about he's a 3-star. Doesn't make me a difference. Just watch, look. What we're going to do, we're going to cut up tape from the San Francisco-Dallas game. And we're going to send that out to every offensive line prospect and say, if you want to be an elite offensive lineman in the NFL, watch these 3 dudes. They were all taught by this man right here, who just happens to be the offensive line coach at Notre Dame. That's it. You don't have to say anything else. You don't have to say anything else. Super chats and questions. I think, Greg, I saw you posted one. Let me try and find it. I'm not sure. There it is. I'm not sure I started. Let's go. That's what's up, Greg. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for sowing that seed, man. Thank you for sowing that seed. I got Doma Wap. Shaun, what is your faith in Tommy Rees quickly developing Sam Hartman into the ND system? You know, that's a good question. Um, Maybe we can get into that on RTCF on Saturday because I don't know if it's going to be more on Tommy Rees or more on Sam Hartman in that transition, right? Sam Hartman is experienced enough and is going through enough drills to know the intricacies of playing quarterback. But getting used to certain things, terminology, that's him. Like from now when he's on campus, going through training with Matt Bayless, go watch yesterday's show when Malik talked about the difference between what Kenny Minchie's going to go through and what all of the other early enrollees are going to go through. It's going to be different because he's a quarterback. And I'm sure it's going to be the same thing with Tommy Rees. And the pressure's on Tommy Rees because he has developed Tyler as well, right? And they don't have a quarterback coach. So he takes on that added pressure. And I think he's going to lean heavily on the experience of Sam Hartman to kind of make the transition on his own with a little bit of help, right? What they're banking on is he can make the throws, right? Learn the playbook, get familiar, lean on the play action, lean on the running game, and use your accuracy, that elite accuracy down the field to make big time plays in the passing game. Shaun, what about Tobias? Is it the routes he runs, his hands, or missed opportunities that he can get more touches? I'm gonna be honest with you, ND for life. The entire wide receiver room didn't get opportunities because of the quarterback play. I'm just keeping it a buck. I'm keeping it in the buck. Syracuse game, I know for a fact that he ran two seam routes that he was wide open and the ball was just late. Ball was just late. As simple as that. He had a ball. Tyler threw a nice ball in the Gator Bowl. I think either I would love to hear him talk about it. Either he was injured or hurt and didn't expect the ball, or either he didn't see the ball because of the sun. But Tyler threw a darn good ball and took a good shot. So that would have been another opportunity. I believe Sam Hartman can be a top five quarterback if our O line is steady and better. Hey, if he is, that bodes well for Notre Dame. That bodes well for Notre Dame. Uh, are we talking about? Well, I'm assuming you're talking about the transfers. Baptiste, edge rusher, looking for him to come off the edge and apply pressure. Depth at that position. They should go 4 or 5 deep. And I think as far as rushing the passer, they're going to be okay next year. I really do. I really do. And I think he's looking for more of an opportunity to get more snaps and show himself in that area as he tries to matriculate into the NFL. So I feel confident with Baptiste. I saw he got his first haircut from Julio cuts on Monday as well. So, and then you can go watch the interview with Thomas Harper, the newest safety, nickel safety. We interviewed him last week. Great interview. He was locked into the Gator Bowl, and he's locked into what they want him to do. So he talked about that. You can go watch the show from last week with Thomas Harper. I like both of the pickups. I do. I like both of the pickups. Hey, Kaiser Sosa. I agree with you. This is, in my opinion, on a lot of areas, in a lot of areas, the program is in a really good spot. And Jay Henry, hey, this is what I do, bro. I'm a professional for a decade in this. I don't necessarily like doing it solo, but if I have to, I rock out and do it, especially to make sure you guys get the content. All right. More than likely, Malik is going to want to do a show later on. I can pretty much guarantee it. So we might have oh and another thing tonight. Oh and another thing. I'll let you guys know on the Twitter handle and set it up. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. And don't forget Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Lucky Lefty Podcast. Smash that like button, hit the share page. Let everybody know Lucky Lefty Podcast. Go over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, set up the automatic download all of our great content. CFB Nation, State of Recruiting is also over there. And don't forget everything in conjunction with Irish Breakdown. It's the Lucky Lefty Podcast, man. You already know. We do what we do. We spin it different. You know what time it is.
Petticoat, petticoat, petticoat junction.
It's time to get petty.
Oh, we did a good job executing.
Are you upset with something?
And fire up the Petticoat Junction train.
I just don't like you.
You don't?
No.
What is today's petty historic Petty Junction?
Petty Junction, pettiest story of the day, brought to you by Onora Whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com, that premium American whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. Talking about petty. Oh, man. So, we were talking about the young man, was on the Alabama basketball team, and I said I really wasn't sure, and the information came out after the show that he actually supplied the gun and in the shooting. And he's still an idiot. That makes him an even bigger idiot in my mind. And he has a lifetime ticket on the petty train. You don't even have to ask. He's on there. Whomever we put on there from this day forward, he's on the petty train right there with them. Baltimore Ravens. I really wasn't on this side until recently. But at this point, thank you, David. I appreciate you. Look, man, I understand you don't like fully guaranteed contracts, but 133 million guaranteed for a former MVP of the league, someone that's kept you pretty much at the top of the division and in the playoffs on an annual basis, and then having incentives to get it up or bump it up to 200 million, that ain't it. That's not it. My opinion, Lamar Jackson deserves better than that. He deserves better than that. If you just can't guarantee 70% of the contract for someone that's pretty much the franchise, the offense, and is probably asked to do more than any other quarterback in the AFC, I don't know what else you need to see. I don't. So, yeah, man. Great show. See you guys tomorrow. Go over to the brothers over at Irish Breakdown, lock in with them. We got plenty of recruiting coming up. We'll be putting up stuff on the message board, reaching out to these 24 and 25 recruits and just getting information back on their offers. I'll let you know if we go tonight. Lucky Lefty Podcast. Have a great Wednesday, but most of all, you got to spend it different.